Hello everybody, welcome to Fly Past. My name is Simon. Good to see you. We are in the Huey. We are going to be flying around Belgium and continuing our talk on the Battle of Waterloo and the 100 days, basically. If you've been following us so far, we've been streaming live on Twitch and we've been putting videos up on YouTube. Hello to everybody today on live on YouTube as well. I'm going to try and see if we can stream on both. Had a few issues with, especially with the new update with Microsoft Flight Simulator, with the bandwidth and stuff like that. So it's always been a little bit iffy trying to stream to two places at once. But we are here now. We are, as I say, been doing the 100 days of the Napoleonic campaign. If you're new to the channel, Flight Past is me, Simon, the amateur historian. Like a little bit of Napoleonic warfare, like a little bit of Second World War. I like also Flight Simulator. And when I saw that Microsoft Flight Simulator was basically this one-to-one recreation of the planet using satellite imagery, I thought this is interesting because there's a guy out there called Cowtown who is doing streaming on the on Flight Simulator. There's podcasts like The Rest is History and We Have Ways of Making You Talk. And there was the guys from the We Have Ways of Making You Talk, James Holland and Al Murray, who were doing the Walking the Grounds series. And if you haven't seen that, go and check that out, because they're brilliant. I thought, okay, well, let's do something in where I can try to combine all those things. So I've been flying around in the Huey helicopter, looking at. We've looked at D-Day, and now we're looking at the 100 days campaign, or I think it's just called the 100 days. If you're so, this is where we've been. We started off down there at the bottom in Elba, and I find that this map is easier to see the place names on. That's why I use this one to begin with. So we started off down here in Elba, and we moved up from the Gulf of Juan, which is this place here. This is where Napoleon lands in the 1st of March 1815, and we followed his trek across the Alps because he was trying to avoid Marseille and the Provence region. He came up to Grenoble, and so from Grenoble then to Lyon, and Lyon eventually into Paris. If you want to check out that, this whole playlist is now on YouTube. Go and check it out. You can follow along and catch up with the story. We followed then Napoleon from Paris, and we got to the point where he has got set up his headquarters at this place here. It's called Avesnes sur Helpe. I probably killed that pronunciation, and I will do it all the time. This is where Napoleon has got to, and the date is around about the 14th of June 1815. We've got the forces of the Allies in Belgium are the Prussians, and they're on the right-hand side of this map. They're led by Blücher, whose headquarters is in Liège, and he will move his headquarters to Namur. And you've got Wellington, who's commanding the Anglo-Dutch army, and they're more stationed to the west-hand side of this map and to the southwest. And there's a line between the two armies, which is basically north-south from Brussels to Charleroi, which is just in the middle here. So if you're new to the channel, what we do is we jump into the Huey and we fly around and have a look at this this area. And what I would want to do is just going to find some places of interest. We'll start off down here at Beaumont. This is the... Actually, we could go to find Avesnes itself. Yes, it's here. So let's start off where Napoleon is now, and we'll head up to Brussels for now, and sort of set that as a sort of a target. And the places where we want to check out on the way will be somewhere like Beaumont. This is where the French will cross the border. We could probably check out a few of the places around here. Thuin would be a good place possibly to go to. We'll head up to Charleroi here. We'll head then to Fleurius, and then we can then find the village of Ligny, which is here. And then on the way up, we'll cross over to a set of crossroads, which is called Quatre Bras. Now, always find it difficult to find this place. There we go. And this is Quatre Bras here. So we'll head there and then up to a place called Genappe. And then when we get, we'll then head to, we'll have a look at Place Noire. And we can then probably just check out the battlefield a little bit, the actual battlefield of Waterloo. And then we'll head into Brussels. So, if you want to join me, I am on the European West server, and you've got Microsoft Flight Simulator, so you'll see yourself on this in the actual stream. You can also join me in chat. Feel free to chat. You'll pop up on the left-hand side. If we get going, I'll show you. So you'll pop up on the left-hand side if you're in chat. And you can basically be my co-pilot. Hello, Guy. Guy, you're behind me. I think you mean... Oh, no, you're not. We don't have anyone today. I'm sorry, you're not behind me. But as you can see, Guy, thank you very much for doing that, because you can actually see where you will pop up. So you guys are going to be my co-pilot. And like I've said in previous streams, you're going to need to keep an eye on me, because I tend to crash into things when I'm reading my notes. So we're at the place. This is Avesnes, the small town on the northern border of France and between France and Belgium. And this is where Napoleon will create his headquarters to begin with. Now, what we are doing, or have been doing, is looking at the different armies, looking at their numbers. And when the last stream we got to, we had just finished looking at the setup, basically, of the French army. So we've done Britain, we've done Prussia, and we've done French. So today what I wanted to do was we do fly this route. We're getting to know the area, we're getting to know the battlefield, the campaign area. Just going to talk a little bit about tactics and the equipment that the armies have, so that when we get to ride with Napoleon up these roads, dividing our army into 3 columns and invading into Belgium, we'll know a little bit more about his abilities, his capabilities of his army, his background of himself, and the different people involved. So let's start by talking about the actual armies, the tactics that were involved. Now, Wellington, he's got an army that's a veteran army. It's not like the French or the Prussian army. There's no conscripts. The British law at the time said that the militias couldn't come out of Britain, so he could only have a professional army, basically, and Britain have always had these sort of small expeditionary style armies. Most of their resources were actually in the navy, but they were prepared to pay their allies on the continent for raising their armies. But the qualities of Wellington's armies tends to be a little bit more have like a steadfast quality to them. And what happened was there was a minor battle back in 1806 in Italy, and this was where the French column was invading the Bay of basically Naples. It's a little place down in Italy. Let's see if I could find it on the map. Actually, you might be able to. So you know where you're talking from. It was a place called Maida. Now, and if you know London at all, it has roots with Maida Vale in part of London. Bet you I can't find it, but it's around about this area, down on the toe here somewhere of Italy. This minor battle that not many people have heard of. What happens at this battle is significant, because a French column there, which was numerically superior to the British, was defeated basically by forming 2 lines. So they had 2 lines against the French typical sort of 3-line kind of thing. It was I spoke about it in the previous section, where they would have this standard unit of around about 30 troops wide and 3 ranks deep. But the British managed to defeat this numerically superior force by forming 2 lines. And they managed to do this because the British army were regulars. They trained properly. They were veterans. They had a better firing rate than the French. And so this was something that Wellington paid particular attention to. And remember, this is 1806, so this is before Wellington is sent to the peninsula. And so what he's basically got then is this a kernel of an idea that with superior quality troops firing a pretty good weapon, well trained, forming a line and having the steadfastness to resist an approaching French column can defeat the column. Now, the only thing he needed to do, of course, was make sure that that line was protected until it was needed. And so it then develops into this idea of having a reverse slope away from cannon, so that you're not exposing your troops to unnecessary fire. Apart from that, so in terms of ordnance, there's not much difference between the armies. If there were any differences between the equipment of the armies, it was pretty small, very small variations. The majority of the infantry at Waterloo and in this campaign, of course, would be using a smooth-bore flintlock musket with sort of an angular, sort of sleeved bayonet. There was rifles being developed. They tended to be for the more elite troops because they were slower to load and they needed a lot more cleaning and maintenance. So they were for more the sort of skilled firers. A skilled trooper with a rifle could probably hit someone from at least from about 150 yards. But the smoothbore musket, you're looking maybe less than half the distance there, and you're therefore just looking for not accuracy but just volume. So that's why you have these lines of troops firing. So we're approaching Beaumont now, and this is basically the routes you can see below us. This road is where the middle column of the French advanced, basically on the morning, late evening of the 14th and into the morning of the 15th of June. They are coming up here, and this will be the main column. Advancing this way, they'd have there's another column over on the left, advancing that way, and different corps are taking these different routes but parallel to each other. We mentioned the corps system that they used, and this is the main thrust here. Napoleon would be bringing up his Imperial Guard behind these places, and these guys were setting off on the morning of the 15th, approaching into Beaumont here and crossing it over. Beaumont basically represents the border at the time. There's been some variations on the actual border, not really it's not very it changed over time, but it doesn't really matter. So ordnance, the musket itself. So yes, it's something that could be basically fired 2 or 3 times in a minute with a skilled, with trained troops, depending on the rate. The rifles would be a lot less than that, probably even half of that time. But of course, the rates would depend on the quality of the troops. The rifles were predominantly a British kind of invention. The French army did experiment with the rifles during the Revolutionary Wars. But they didn't really. It wasn't a major part of their armory. It was deemed a non-standard weapon, basically, for the French. The Prussians, though, Hanoverians, Brunswicks, Nassau armies, all contained riflemen. These were they tended to have this sort of non-standard kind of what they would call hunting rifles, Jaeger type style things. Not really sort of they weren't issued, really. They were more privately owned kind of thing. The rifles didn't ever tend to have a bayonet upon them, so they were very much just a sort of for the specialist kind of skirmisher person. So this is Beaumont. We are just crossing now into Belgium. If you're new to the channel, what I tend to do is I will just do a few little breaks here and there, just so that I can divide it up and put it out onto Twitch, onto YouTube. So I will just take a quick break here and have a glass of water, and when we come back, we'll continue looking at some of the ordnance that was used during the Napoleonic War, as we now start to approach Charleroi again, following the French army on the 15th of June 1815. So I will be back in a second. Welcome back to Flight Past. My name is Simon. We are looking at the Battle of Waterloo, and currently just flying over the border between Belgium and France, and we're just talking about the tactics, the ordnance, the equipment that was used during this period. It's good to see a few people in the watching. Looks like Guy has been with us for a while. He's been dedicated to the channel. If you want to join in, please do. Even if it's you're watching it later, ask questions, please, and join in. And what we're trying to do here is to get a look at the terrain that these guys faced in 1815. And if you're ever watching a history or reading a history book and you've always got your finger in the map section, this is the channel for you. So we left the last part of the stream. We were discussing the rifle, and when we talk about the rifle, one of the things that one of the names that always springs to mind for this period is the Baker rifle, and this was primarily used by the British and the King's German Legion. It was an accurate, possibly, but though a slow loading weapon. The 95th rifles, of course, if you're a fan of Sharp, and the King's German Legion battalions, and some light companies of the King's German Legion were the main users of this rifle. The Baker rifle was about 45 inches from muzzle to butt. It was therefore shorter than the musket. It weighed about 9 pounds. Modern terms, what is that? 9 pounds. 5, 6, 7 kilos, something like that. It had a rifled bore, as it were, which obviously gave the spin to enable the accuracy. And because of that, it needed specialist cleaning. The whole weapon needed to be looked after a lot more than the musket needed to be, and the rifling made it difficult to load because it's still being loaded through the muzzle. So it was a superior weapon in the sense that it was if it was in the skilled hands, but it didn't replace the musket. Musket was cheap and cheerful, and one that you give to your main body of troops. In practice, a lot of these skirmishers would try to get their hands on these things. The skirmishers would usually be like a cloud of infantry in front of the line, who would try to disrupt approaching enemy by targeting their officers and sergeants. We are currently in Belgium. We're just across the border, and we're heading to Charleroi at the moment. We will come back here later and do a detailed follow of the French into France. But you can see below the sort of territory that they were trying to cross. The nature of the Belgian country around here were sort of low hills, but with steep sort of sided rivers and stuff. So bridges were important at the time. We are basically at a place called Huey right now, which is just here. And we're following the left-hand column of the French into Charleroi. So the main weapon, though, of the British was, of course, this musket, which was known as the Brown Bess. There was a number of 3 different versions of it, but it was a sturdy weapon. It's not known why it was called the Brown Bess. There is different theories about that. Presumably something to do with Elizabeth the First. Different versions included the long land pattern version, the short land pattern version, the Indian pattern version. There was a new land pattern musket, and a sea service version as well. Rudyard Kipling, by the way, had a poem. He wrote it in 1911 about the Brown Bess. Bet you didn't know that. In the days of lace ruffles, perruques, and brocade, Brown Bess was a partner whom none could despise. An outspoken, flinty-lipped, brazen-faced jade, with a habit of looking men straight in the eyes, as Blenheim and Remillies. Fops would confess they were pierced to the heart by the charms of Brown Bess. That's Rudyard Kipling. We are now approaching, this looks like Charleroi. This was where the French managed to get to on the 15th of June, probably around about lunchtime. The bridges here had not been destroyed by the Allies because they were still expecting to use them. They were expecting to use these bridges to go into France. But they were barricaded, but they weren't destroyed. Now the French had a musket, interestingly enough, that had a smaller bore than the Brown Bess. It also used coarser gunpowder, so it required cleaning more often. The French musket ball was lighter, so it required less charge. But the barrel would need to be cleaned probably twice as much as the Brown Bess would need to be cleaned. It also meant that the Brown Bess could fire at a pinch, if you had to, a French musket ball. But the French couldn't fire a British one. So in terms of the sort of the tactics, then these guys, these skirmishers I was talking about, they would be around probably about 50 men. So you've got a typical British Army battalion would have about 500 men in it, and 50 men would be in front as a skirmishing force. And the French battalion would have about a sixth of their number as well, as a tirailleurs they were called. Having these rifles with the skirmishers meant that many of these tirailleurs were actually defeated before they in many other circumstances they were defeated by counter skirmishing. Typical, therefore, for Wellington would be to post his line infantry on a reverse slope. Main French infantry would tend to advance in sort of a column. They call columns thick groups of men, basically. They had these sort of 3 lines, 30 men, which was easier for them to sort of march together. Trying to march in a line was difficult, but marching in a column meant you kind of were swept along. And so Wellington would have his troops on the reverse side. One, they were out of the way of French artillery, and also the approaching French columns couldn't see them. And so when the columns then appeared over the ridge, the lines of the thin red line stand up, fire, and using their superior firepower, the weight of the brown bear shot being a little bit higher, they would then hopefully unnerve the approaching French column and make them break. The riflemen, their main job is to target leaders, target officers, target artillery people. If they're trying to bring up their cannon, they would be trying to take out the artillery guys before they could bring up their artillery alongside the infantry. And so you can then, when we get to Waterloo, you'll be able to see the specific places where the rifles are positioned and why they were positioned there. Typically as well, the infantry, they would have a cartridge, they'd have a pack, and they'd be looking at maybe 40 cartridges in their pack. The British tended to carry a little bit more. Right, we are approaching Ligny. Just pause here and we'll jump out. Always difficult to see this this battlefield. So Fleurus is there. I think we're looking here somewhere. I think this is it here. It's changed a bit and it's difficult to see. This road might be a modern road. Let's just check on the map here. So if we come along the road, this is the main Roman road, and this is probably, we're talking here. You can see how difficult it is to spot. I think, yeah, so these lakes here are on the left side, the eastern side of the map of the battlefield. So this here is the town of Langley. So what we actually have, and just for a quick orientation, the Prussians were on this side here. There should be a few bridges here. There's a river that kind of meanders its way around. This is basically the front line of the Prussians. The Prussians are in this area here, going up this slope, heading this way. And the French are over on the other side of the hill, over here. Now I think some of these roads may be modern, but this area here is where the French were lined up. I believe Napoleon had his position was somewhere around here, looking down. But you can see that there's the terrain here is pretty low. It's not really there's not much here. It's a weird place to meet. Whether it was scouted properly, I don't know. We do know that Wellington came across from Quatre Bras, and he met Blucher here at this village here called Bry, I believe, and there was a windmill here, and it's believed that Wellington could see the position of the Prussians, so he thinks he could see the position. And what the Wellington doesn't like about this is that the Prussians, sorry, let me just were basically on this slope here, facing and in the town below here, facing the French. And oh, sorry, you left the map on. Well, I'll do that again. So yeah, the Bry is the name of the place I believe that Wellington came to. Supposedly there's a windmill here, or maybe this church tower. He could see, he said, down to the position of the Prussians, and whether that was true or not, I mean, it doesn't look like you'll be able to see much. point being was that the Prussians are basically on this slope. Just trying to turn down the sensitivity of this thing. So they're on this slope here, facing the French, which are on the other side of this stream. So they're in Ligny itself, and there's this almost like a brook, really, rather than, it's not really a river, but it does provide an obstacle, and there's sections over to the western side of the battlefield that has basically boggy land, makes it difficult for troops to cross. Wellington says he doesn't like the position, and you can see it from his eyes, because having the Prussians on this slope, which is facing the French, you're actually exposing yourself to their so yeah, they're exposing themselves to their artillery. So it doesn't seem to be a well thought out place. This does feel like this is the Prussians trying to possibly get somewhere else. They were told to all meet at Sombref. There's a few roads that meet here. This is Sombref itself. They're all trying to get to this place, and then this just seems to be the first place, basically, after Sombref, that they could possibly have a battle. Anyway, let's jump back in the helicopter, and we'll head continue our way to Quatre Bras. And on the way, we'll take a little break here as we find the route, and I'll take a little break, and when we come back, we'll discuss cavalry tactics. Welcome back to Flight Past. My name's Simon. We are doing Waterloo, Battle of Waterloo. We are just preparing ourselves. We're looking at some of the we've looked at the armies, we looked at some of the numbers, we're looking at some of the ordnance, and I thought as we just fly over some of the locations of the campaign of 1815, we can talk about a bit now about cavalry, the cavalry and their tactics. We're approaching, we just left the Ligny, and we're now approaching Quatre Bras. So we're just can see the Ligny here next, that number 4. We're heading towards Quatre Bras, which is this number 3 here, and you can see the distances involved between the two battlefields. And it turns out that this distance was probably too far for Wellington to come to the support of the Prussians. But this is by design. Napoleon had attacked the Allies on their line. So we are trying to find Quatre Bras, and I always find this one difficult to find, but it might be here. I'm not sure if that is that. We'll just follow this road here. This is a very important road that we have. This is the a road that meant that the Allies could link up with each other forward of Brussels. So it travels, I think it might be an old Roman road. Most of them are around here probably. Travels east-west. And so this would be the main route that the British troops would try to come down to support the Prussians if they could. It's an important junction. Napoleon recognizes it as an important junction, and whether he expresses that to Ney clearly enough is another controversy of this campaign. But he's basically given Ney control of half of his army, or a large part of his army. He's basically told him to come up here from Charleroi, which is down to our right, down there, sorry, to on our left. He's told to come up to here and to seize this crossroads. It's called Quatre Bras, obviously means 4 arms, and this is strategically an important junction. So let's just pause here and we'll jump out and have a look. A lot of these buildings here didn't exist. There was buildings by the actual crossroads itself. If you head up this way, you will come to basically get to Brussels, and down here is you can see in the distance Charleroi. Over here we can quickly demonstrate the distance between here and Ligny. So you can see how important it was to hold and control that crossroads. And you can see now ahead of us is Bry, and that's where Wellington gets to talk to Blucher on the morning of the 16th of June. He from here could look down to Ligny, which is I believe this village here. And the French are over. Napoleon is coming from Fleurus here, attacking the Prussians, and he's doing that because he knows that the Prussian army is the largest army furthest forward. So if he can attack the Prussians here, and with a smaller force back at Quatre Bras, he can pin Wellington. But the key element to this would be to one, they're both kind of trying to do the same thing. They need to control the crossroads here at Quatre Bras. That then means if you can, if Ney could control the crossroads at Quatre Bras, it would mean that he could pin Wellington there and send any reinforcements to Napoleon. But because he didn't capture the crossroads, he was trying to bring up more and more troops to do that. And that then is an issue which we'll see when we do the proper run through, that there is a reserve force who is commanded to go one way towards Napoleon, and then Ney countermands that order and tells them to come back towards Quatre Bras. But that means that those reserves don't feature at all in the in any battle on that day. So this here, what we're looking at now, is basically the battlefield of Quatre Bras. On the left here, where these fields are, you can see some trees, but this area here was mainly woods, and there was a few buildings up here, and the 95th Rifles that we just spoke about, they were along this line down here. French under Ney were pushing up from this direction to try to capture this crossroads. So the mass panic of this happening in Brussels in the morning of and the evening of the 15th and the morning of the 16th, they are streaming troops down this road from Brussels and down this road here from Nivelles, which is to the west, and the troops are arriving, and they are arriving into a full-scale battle. Troops are coming along this road and immediately peel across to the right-hand side, or Wellington will have his troops coming down this road and immediately pull across to this. So all day long, it's a, in his words, used on a different battlefield, it was a close-run thing. It all depended on when troops were arriving down this road. Okay, let's jump back in a helicopter, and we'll head now up this Brussels road. We'll get to Genappe. Let's talk cavalry. We were going to talk cavalry. So Wellington doesn't have a high regard for the British cavalry. He tends to think of them as units that shoot their bolticles. He says they will be a one-shot thing that happen, and then because they're so disorganized, they can't get organized again to be an effect on the battlefield. He's always having issues with his with his cavalry units. Apart from one time, which was the Battle of Salamanca, there the infantry were commanded well. I can't remember who it was now. Yeah, the only time it was General Le Marchand. He handled his cavalry well at the Battle of Salamanca, but he was killed in that battle, which was a shame. Wellington spoke of his cavalry. In 1825, he was quoted as saying, "I considered our cavalry so inferior to the French from want of order, that although one squadron was a match for 2 French, I did not like to see 4 British exposed to 4 French. As numbers increase, order becomes more necessary, and our men could gallop, but could not preserve their order." So he didn't like that bravado of the cavalry, and we'll see an example of that, of course, when we get to Waterloo itself. The British cavalry tended to not be they didn't wear cuirasses like the French heavy cavalry did. And their swords were of a sort of a slightly curved nature. Sabres, it was known as the 1796 pattern. So, yes, I mean, cavalry was important, I think, and in certain examples, you can say that they saved the day on many occasions, but they were one-shot things that Wellington, and that's what he didn't like about them. He knew that they were brave, they were fine horses, and all that sort of stuff. But it was the lack of control that he didn't like. And he had the same thing with the artillery as well. For some reason, he didn't like his artillery. They seemed to fire on things he didn't approve of. Yeah, he wasn't happy with them either. Now the French had the cuirassier. It wasn't. They were no longer basically really a defense against musket balls, especially at close range. But they were useful, the cuirassiers, as a in close combat. But I got most of the Napoleonic cavalry had given up the armor side of things. Most of the cavalry would carry just a saber. Some of them would have a lance. There was Polish lancers. The British cavalry didn't carry lances in 1815, though I believe that the Uhlans of the Duke of Brunswick did. There was advantages and disadvantages for carrying a lance. They were good against some infantry, but not against other cavalry. Just basically because it was a clumsy weapon in close quarters. Most of the cavalry people would have their own firearm, a pistol, or a short carbine. Their effectiveness, I mean, it was an option. It was something that could be used once, but it was definitely, the argument about how effective a carbine or a pistol was for a cavalry person was it wasn't particularly useful. So here's the battlefield, by the way, of Waterloo itself. Looking to the right here, we're basically flying along the French lines at the moment. The British and the Anglo-Dutch are all over there on that ridge. So let's pause here, jump out, have a look. We will obviously come back to this area later, but just to get you familiar. Down below us is La Belle Alliance. I believe Napoleon's headquarters is back here. There's a farmhouse here. On the right hand side is Place Noire, and this is the direction that the Prussians will eventually arrive from. And you can see I spoke about this in a previous stream episode. This is the beautiful battlefield of Waterloo, and every time I look at this, I just think that the subtlety of this battlefield is amazing. What you have is on the left hand side, you've got Hougoumont, the Chateau of Hougoumont. In the center, you've got the farm La Haissante, and then there's a bunch of villages and hamlets on the right hand side that mark the field. This Belle Alliance is basically the sort of French front line. And in simple terms, this is what happened. If you remember, we were talking about the tactics of Napoleon. He's sitting here. Now you've got to imagine that hideous mound is not there, because that's post-battle. Very subtle ridge. You could hardly see it here at all. But it does mean there's a reverse slope. So Wellington has got his infantry behind that slope. So the French artillery, which are placed along this sort of slope here, when they fire, they can't hit the infantry, which are behind that ridge. Now, Napoleon doesn't know what's behind this ridge, but he can see that there is the forest behind, and he believes this is a mistake. So he does agree to sort of have his battle here. And the first thing he wants to do is to attack on the sort of edges of the battlefield. And he sends men over here to attack the chateau at Hougoumont. This becomes one of an all-day battle, but it's probably Napoleon's intentions on this side was to try to encourage the British to move reserves from their centre to the right. Napoleon probably also understands that if he can threaten Wellington's right flank, then he's going to start to threaten his if he can break around this way, he can threaten Wellington's supply lines and push him away from his supply lines. And Wellington is afraid of that, because he has placed some troops that don't see any action over here at Braine Allude over here, but they don't get to see any action on the day. What actually happens is that the inexperience of those troops, or the lack of proper orders, or whatever it is, or the lack of the strategic understanding, means that this actually sucks in more French troops than was actually necessary. When that part of the action occurs, he then wants to he threatens then the right-hand side of the his right-hand side, but the British left-hand side. So he sends forward his troops forward along here, and we get the troops coming up this section, the French infantry coming up here and attacking the British here. And you can see this reverse sort of slope again just there. This is the famous sunken lane at the top, and this is where the columns of French advance. In response to that, there is a cavalry charge. They swoop down these ways, swoop down into the French infantry, push back that attack, but they lose control. They're all milling around this area here. They can see the guns of the French, so they get in here, but they then get counter-attacked by the French on this side. All the time as well, we've got the Haissant being attacked, and the 95th Rifles are here in this like a sandpit quarry thing here, and their job is to basically take out leaders of infantry as they're coming up, and prevent the artillery being brought forward up this ridge. So Napoleon's main concern here is to try to get these pressurize Wellington's flanks, so that he will commit his reserves, which are behind here, one way or the other. And then eventually what we get is Ney is in charge on this side. There's probably something happens with Napoleon. He might be ill, we don't know, but he's not around. Napoleon can see, he believes he can see the British troops retreating back. He believes that that's his chance, so he sends forwards these cuirassiers up here over the top, and what he finds is that the British infantry have formed square in this area, so form square so that they have a 360 degree defense, and the French cuirassiers can't penetrate these squares. And all afternoon then what we get is this sort of waves of cavalry attacks. Then they go back and recuperate. We have on the top of this ridge here, we have British artillery. They will fire at them, they will come out, then the artillery people go back into the square, and so there's this sort of to and fro battle going on. Eventually it gets to the point of a crisis, and what happens is troops are seen coming from the east. At first Napoleon, well, he possibly thinks that it's the French of Grouchy. He spreads, he tells the troops that it's the French, but he probably knows deep down it's not. And the Prussians are pushing through these woods, and gullies coming out, and they're coming onto the battlefield through from this side here, pressing into Place Noire, which is this village here. And this means that Napoleon, who is in this area here, has to start committing his reserves to defending his right flank, but while at the same time trying to win a victory as quickly as possible in this direction. And of course, with the cuirassiers operating, they're not operating with infantry, and that's one of the biggest mistakes of this battle that Ney supposedly makes. And eventually what you get is a commitment. I think the waves of Prussians are arriving from this side. They're getting larger and larger amounts, and Napoleon has to commit his guard to attack this slope here. And La Haye-Sainte will fall at a certain point, and it's all getting a bit crisis time. And I believe it's in this area here that the columns of the guard advance, and they're taking fire from the left over here. And when they get up to this point, this is when the guard get attacked from both sides, this side and from this side, from the Maitland's guards, all that sort of stuff. And this is when the garde recule, we're talking about in the late evening on the 18th, and sort of panic starts going through the ranks of the French, and they all start streaming off the battlefield. Eventually Napoleon has to escape in his carriage down to Genappe, and then back into France. And this here is supposed to be where Blucher and Wellington meet at the end of the battle. Now, that's just off the top of my head, so we'll look at some more of the details. There's a lot more subtle things going on, but what I love about this battlefield is the subtlety of the terrain, the subtlety of the topography in itself is almost like a trap. It's like a Venus flytrap that Napoleon has fallen into. And yeah, it was a close run thing. There was many things that went right for Wellington, and mistakes were made on both sides, but there was more serious ones probably on the French side. And yeah, but fantastic story that unravels here. Right, on that note then, I think I will call it a day. I'd just like to say thank you for everybody who has been watching. I would intend next time to look into the actual actions, the actual movements. So what we'll do is we'll start off in the morning of the 15th, right back at the beginning at Beaumont, and we'll follow in very much more detail of the routes and the things that happen. So in the next video we'll probably do a little less flying and more looking around. Looking around the actual terrain. So that will be tomorrow, probably in the morning. So I hope you've enjoyed that. please, I'm a very small channel, so if you did find anything in that story interesting, let me know by just simple clicking a like or subscribing. We're trying to get I don't know, a number of people. We're about 74 followers on Twitch, so if you can get me up to 80, that'd be great. And we're on about 24 subscribers on YouTube, so you guys are lagging behind badly. So if you can bring your A game in and subscribe, that will be cool. Apart from that, yeah, I will see you then in the next stream. Goodbye.